So today I'm going to take a look at this petition on the Good Law Project. So you can see from the title it says that they stand in solidarity with Jason Arday. Now, if you've been reading the news lately, you'll see this guy has been in the news for all the wrong reasons. It says here that he's the youngest black professor in Cambridge's history, and that supposedly right-wing newspapers are trying to smear him with fake accusations of plagiarism. um, if we go down, it says that entirely false allegations of plagiarism were made against him at two universities, and the investigations exonerated him. Um, Now, that may be the case, but it's perhaps a little bit surprising because if we look at this Substack article here by Nathan Kofnas, this guy has done an investigation of I think it was Arday's PhD dissertation, and compared that to a paper. This by Wozniak Myers from 2009. So we can see here the yellow highlighted bits are where Arday has made verbatim copies, and then the green highlights are areas with paraphrasing or minor alterations. So we can scroll down here, we can see there's lots of areas that has got verbatim copying, and apparently the dissertation didn't cite this was Jack Myers. I mean, I'm no academic, but I would know that if you're using the work of other people in yours, you would normally cite them in the references section. And it seems to me that from a layman's perspective, there's definitely enough verbatim copying here to suggest that there's a case to answer. So it's a little bit surprising that this guy was exonerated from plagiarism. Um, so if we go back to the petition here, so they're obviously bringing in the racial element here, and they're saying it's difficult to ignore the motivation because a distinguished black academic has been repeatedly subject to baseless allegations after being fully exonerated. Of course, I think part of the criticism of this is the suggestion that Arday really didn't have what would normally be the right academic qualifications to get the role of a professor at Cambridge. Obviously, there's a lot of questions over DEI, whether sometimes people get roles because of their identity, whether it's ethnic or something else, rather than their actual qualifications. I mean, it's also worth bearing in mind that, okay, maybe some of the right wing newspapers have been involved in this. I haven't followed exactly who's been looking at this originally. But then, if right wing is good at picking up things that are going on in academia, there's nothing wrong with that. Likewise, left wing media and investigators might pick up things that are happening where there's more right wing influence in society. So, in some ways, they perhaps act as a bit of a balance in, trying to see what's going on. Obviously, we don't support picking on people just simply because of the colour of the skin, but clearly here there's something else going on with this Arday's background and qualifications. In fact, as I get on to soon, it seems that in some ways it's the old saying of somebody seems too good to be true, then they probably are. Anyway, so the petition goes on, talks about he's been demonised, and they stand in unwavering solidarity with Professor Arday. Now, it's quite interesting that because I think they've potentially been a little bit previous. So, as we're seeing here, there is certainly some sort of prima facie evidence of plagiarism that needs to be investigated. There's also been some pretty strange goings on with his backstory that he's either kind of rode back on slightly or that aren't substantiated. One of the strange things that I read was that apparently he actually reported to the police another academic who'd been emailing him in regard to questions about whether he'd been copying work from other academics without proper citation. But then apparently, when there was a masked knifeman after him on the campus, he didn't report that to the police, and nor was there apparently any evidence for this person on CCTV. So there's definitely something strange going on here. I believe he's also claims to have done a lot of kind of ultra marathons and various things for charities that now don't quite hold up in the way that he's said was the case. I think he's made some kind of clarifications about it, but it seems to me that there's a lot of revelations that are coming out now that is kind of showing him in a totally different light. So I think the people who initially wrote this petition, these people here, and then the people who signed it since, actually may be shown to look a bit silly in the course of time. Now, certainly one of the developments since this petition, if we look here, is actually that he's now actually stepped down and resigned. He's obviously claiming particular reasons for doing that. So I think here it says for his own well-being, his family, and those who have stood behind him. Now, not everybody's going to believe what he says here. I mean, my personal view is that he probably realizes that the game is up. So he's kind of jumping before there's a danger of him being pushed or further humiliated while he's in that role. I mean, obviously, time will tell what happens with the investigations. But I believe Cambridge is now actually investigating his academic qualifications now in more scrutiny. Something obviously they should have done when they employed him. And I thought this was quite telling here as well. So this is an article at The Guardian. So it's actually by a black guy as well. And if we search through here, this guy even says that Arday was not treated as a scholar but as a mascot who was particularly expedient for an institution that's been regularly embarrassed by its own historic record in race. So I think if even the Guardian is talking in this way, then there's clearly something not right with Arday's story. So tell me in the comments what you think. I know some people have claimed him to be fabulous, and I certainly believe that there's reason to think there's something in that. But I'll be interested to see what you guys think about him. And one interesting thing to finish on is actually 3 years ago when Arday apparently was appointed as a professor, there was a YouTuber called Simon Webb who actually looked at his academic work and raised quite a lot of questions because of things like poor quality of spelling, grammar, that kind of thing. I think I'm not entirely sure, but I think he even used the phrase "he smells a rat." Now, certainly, it looks like what has transpired since then may prove his suspicions correct.